Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very senior corporate professional turned coach and author, Mr. K. Jayshankar from Pune, India. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. It's a privilege being with you, and wish you and your viewers and listeners a happy new year.
Thank you so much. Jay is the managing director of Empowered Learning Systems Private Limited. He is focused on consulting, coaching, and training. And as all of you know, I'm very partial to authors. He's the author of Succeeding in Business, Nurturing Value in Family Business. So Jay, let's talk family business today.
Wonderful.
Let's start with talking about your book. First, tell me, is it available on Amazon?
Yes, it is. Must tell you that it's available on Amazon. It's available on other platforms as well, both in the electronic form, in different platforms, as well as, of course, the physical book.
Wonderful.
People who still love the touch and feel of a book.
Absolutely. So tell me about your book and your hypothesis.
Well, the book, since you mentioned it, I've got it here. I'm a student of business. And when you study business globally, you'll find that most of the successful business around the world, particularly for businesses that have run a long time, are actually family businesses. And that is something which often people do not understand very well. The world is fascinated by the brands that have been created, we talk a lot about corporate language. But even the so-called, if you go behind the curtain and look at the way the business is owned or structured, the genesis lies with some entrepreneur and some family that have created it. So my fascination with entrepreneurs has taken me towards studying this a little more closely, and hence I'm a student of family business, if I can call it that.
Okay. So if you look at family businesses globally, barring a few, it is generally believed that the first generation starts and builds.
Yes.
The second generation consolidates, and the third generation destroys. Give me your perspective on what's happening in family businesses in India.
This has been, it's gone beyond the cliche. Yes, it is generally understood, and it's been seen, you're right, Ashutosh, that they talk of shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in three generations. And to a large extent, you find that happening. But I think it's not always so. When I spoke about, the good families, etc., particularly the longevity, they have big organizations and families that have gone beyond 300, 500 years. Even in India, you'll find old examples. But the fact is that any business, in today's VUCA world, even more so, with turbulence around us, if you don't reinvent, you're asking for trouble. So the graph goes up, thanks to the efforts of the first generation entrepreneur. The second generation often consolidates it. And if the third generation wishes to take it further, and if the value has been understood, the values have been shared in the family very well, and the family intends to build and continue the value that they have generated over years, if they wish, they can design and do it. My book focuses on how they can actually nurture this.
Okay.
And take it further.
Okay. But, since you mentioned a little while ago that you are a student of family business, I'd love to get your perspective on how a family business is changing in India.
It is an interesting time that we live in. And I think we all agree that the speed at which businesses, or the velocity of business, has changed completely. And I think in that process, the second or third generation that is stepping into business is now getting very ambitious about how they want to see themselves. And let's take typically a third generation, or in longer or older families could be the fourth generation. When that group is coming into business, typically the good families have nurtured them in such a fashion that they are ready for business. So the process of succession planning in the family has been taken care of very well, and various steps can be taken, and certain things have been outlined in my book. But let's also talk about the fact that the new generation that we are living with is equally ambitious of often trying something new, and some families understand that and accommodate that by allowing the Gen X to venture out themselves for an initial period. And if that grows, they can even accommodated into the family streams,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes if things don't work out very well, you often have families that also splinter, and we see those stories in the press every day. So I think we see examples of all kinds.
Okay.
And if I may just add one more point, when you look at the new generation that comes in, typically you find, I can broadly categorize them as two. One are the people who wish to, in a sense, they're inheritors who either consolidate and diversify, or there is also the second category would be people who want to redeem the family name because of what has happened. Because when, as you mentioned, when families lose their intensity and businesses are splintered, I've also met many very young entrepreneurs who seek help, saying that they want to redeem the family name. So to them, I really look at them as people who are, in a sense, neo entrepreneurs who are building all over again, but they come with a family tradition.
Very interesting. And yet, when you look at the large family businesses, which are maybe 100, 150 years old, they have really dependent on what, if I can use the term, the license Raj, huge amounts of loans which have been paid back now. So they are primarily asset heavy, as compared to today's world, where everything seems to be asset light and more direct to consumer. Based on your study of families, how are the large families which have got such large assets, how are they adjusting?
This is an interesting conversation because many old families are puzzled at what has happened today. I mean, let's forget about the license Raj for the minute, because very frankly, it's nearly 30 years since we have moved into a new phase. So there is a generation that got the benefit of it. Some could not survive in the new world that has emerged post 1990s, and they have floundered. There are many examples of that. But there are others who have actually, worked on the entrepreneurial genes that are there in the family, and have taken it forward. So, and that's the good news for Indian, industry, because they are the ones who have actually utilized the new opportunity that came up. But these guys are also very puzzled at what is happening today, where businesses are making losses, but their valuation is skyrocketing.
Correct.
And so that has caused a lot of conversation. And there you find, again, two approaches. There are people who will say, let's wait and watch whether this is for real. Because, or like many other trends that have come and have gone, many people are betting on the fact that this will go away. But I also mentioned to you the next generation that is coming in. What some families have done is that they've allowed the generation next to attempt and try out some of those businesses. And in a sense, therefore, they are being careful to protect what they already have, but are experimental enough to try out something different to see whether this is for real. And I think whether it's for real is the jury is still out, because nobody really knows whether this is a sustainable model, because it's not just you and me, but some of the best economists in the world are puzzled at what's happening. But what we need to understand is the game has changed. Technology has changed the world.
Correct. The other thing that I have experienced with a lot of family business owners who are personal friends also is the whole question of succession. The older generation, and when I say older generation, people of my vintage, believe that they have earned all the money and the younger generation is going to blow it up. So therefore, they want to keep their hand on the pulse of the money. The younger generation is rebelling and saying, we're part of this family, and yes, you did all this, but someone else did it for you before you. Yes. How are families handling succession?
The succession battles are not new. I mean, you are a student of history, and I know you are, also someone who has studied Indian ethos in a very close way. And so, Ashutosh, that parental conflicts, generational conflicts are nothing new in society. What matters is the way the business family has handled that. I think the conversations around business often start at the dining table. unfortunately, in the last, shall we say, in the post for the millennial generation, the dining table conversations have become difficult because everybody's been living their own life at a different pace. But so businesses that have understood that they need to perpetuate, create structures in such a way that these conversations can be had. One of those things that they have done is that they have, first of all, educated the next generation at the best of places in the world. Once upon a time, it was in India, then it went overseas. Today, there is a good mix of both. And very early, they expose them to business realities. The second thing they have done is that they have taken external help. In the past, businesses depended on some, shall I say, a faithful family member or a family associate who guided these youngsters. Today, in the so-called professional world, we go to coaches. So there are coaches that are employed to work with young people, to handhold them and support them. And all this is a structured way of enabling the business to go forward. But yes, there are rigid patriarchs who refuse to believe that that there is a smooth transition which is possible by doing these things. They may still believe in the rough and ready method of throw the person into the water and let him sink or swim. So they're asking for trouble. Then rebellion in the family is bound to happen.
Very interesting. So I'm now going to move to the next segment of our conversation, which is about coaching. Yes. And our conversation on family business has given me an interesting segue into my next question. Jay, when I was growing up as a professional manager, coaching or mentoring was either done by a senior in the company who took a liking for you, or in the family business by an elder in the family. And you just spoke about it, about the dining table conversations. What has changed that now people want outsiders to come in, coach either professionals or family business members, and they're willing to pay for it?
Well, once again, let's understand that once upon a time, coaching was a lot about knowledge being imparted.
Correct.
Today, knowledge is freely available. And I would even go to the extent of saying that the new generation that is coming in has got not just access, but they are utilizing it far more. Even if we don't accept, even if the older generation, your generation, my generation, would think that they are wasting their time on electronic media, frankly, they are absorbing a lot of stuff. I think while you and I were lucky that we didn't use the word coaching those days. We had a senior, as you said, who took us under their wing and helped us. And I look at my own life and say I was mentored by wonderful people. But they gave me a lot of knowledge. They put me to, connected me to, and gave me access to knowledge. Today, that is already available. Correct. What is missing is the wisdom that can be imparted by somebody from outside. Number two is the fact that with today's generation, we are not, we got to understand that they don't, accept ideas just because an older person is saying so. But they're often willing to listen to people who are not within the family bracket. And that is where the professional coach comes in, because when I told you that they have also gone and studied about it. And Western models teach them that there is a value for the outsider. So, and whether and if you remember, since you are someone who understands the Indian ethos, whether it was the royalty of the past who always brought in a guru from outside, they were they were not called coaches. We used to call them the gurus or the acharyas who supported them.
Correct.
But that's the role that professional coaches play. But of course, we are different. We use different words. The essence is not changed.
Amazing. And as someone who has coached so many different people, what is the difference between coaching senior leaders and emerging leaders?
The senior leader knows a lot of stuff and understands the reality that he has gone through, and he needs the essence of it is that we all need someone to talk to. We all need someone to talk to. With the senior leader, the conversation is really about what he's going through at that point of time, and also, of course, offering different perspectives. And in family businesses in particular, you need that because very few people inside the family are willing to speak truth to power. And
Correct.
that is, I think, a social malaise that we live in. Nobody wants to express. Though we have grown up with stories about, the child who told the emperor that he has no clothes. Frankly, it's not done, whether it's in the corporate world or family business.
Absolutely.
So therefore, they are willing to, but the smart ones know that there is someone they can talk to. So that's that kind of conversation is what you have. But with the younger people, it's actually much more of a shall I say, a conversation which is more empathy loaded. Enabling to do a lot of listening of what they are going through. Because they often tell you that no one is willing to pay attention to their ideas inside the family. So they need someone to listen to, and then help them. In a sense, different people need different things, of course. But essentially, what you're doing is sharing some of your wisdom so that you can smoothen the rough edges that they have, and enable an opportunity, or this becomes an opportunity to tell them to be resilient, because life is all about taking some knocks and moving ahead. So, and again, different situations are there where sometimes, in fact, when you are an advisor to the family, the younger generation often uses you as a conduit to even convey, issues to the senior leaders, or you give them pointers to enable them to sell their ideas better to the family leaders. So, in that sense, a better connection is made.
Very interesting. Another question that I have often been asked by a lot of individuals. That how do they determine whether they have a good coach? How do they evaluate a coach? What is your perspective?
The ROI question is always there, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. So, and I think values in the eye of the beholder. I don't think it's easy for outsiders to decide whether somebody's been a good coach or not. But the fact is, the reason why the psychological and commercial contract has started, I think, is important. I'm sure you have been in similar situations that many of us as coaches find that the organization brings you in saying that this is something that needs to be done. But when you start the conversation with the coachee, you realize that actually the need is something else. So in which case, sometimes you need to go back to the organization and convey this to them and modify the coaching contract in a sense that the expectations have to be reset. So that could be something that becomes necessary. But if you are able to deliver value to the individual, I think the purpose of the coaching exercise is achieved. In remedial coaching, it's easier to measure because there was a problem that needed to be addressed. But most of the work we do with senior leaders is actually more developmental. Where you put the seed in and help create the right environment so that the person discovers benefits over the future. One way of finding out is, of course, the longevity of the relationship. If there is genuine value being provided, somebody, not that you want to create dependencies, that I must add, we are not trying to create dependencies, but if they find value because the nature of conversation over a longer period completely changes, because two individuals are not the same with passage of time.
Interesting. So, Jay, I'm going to move to the last segment of our conversation, and my viewers and listeners love to get to know my guest a little more. So I have 2 or 3 questions for you personally. My first question to you is that in a life well lived and a successful career, what would you say are 3 key milestones in your life or your career?
Okay, that's a deep conversation that one can have, but if you want it in a very succinct manner, I think the early part of life is when you're acquiring a lot of stuff, and I think I've been very fortunate. I consider myself as a very lucky man, very fortunate man, because the teachers and professors that I had in school and college were wonderful people who taught us a lot of stuff. My early professional life in organizations where, as I indicated earlier, I received the benefit of 2 wonderful mentors. One was my immediate boss. I'm willing to acknowledge it. Naushir Khrodi was my boss, who was the managing director of my firm. And I was a young kid who got my breaks very early. So he was one. And then there was a gentleman who's no longer there, K.K. Randeria, who's a very respected man. So people like them mentored. So the first thing was getting the right kind of mentorship. I think the second part was the willingness to push oneself, and because the lessons learned was you got to go and try new things. So the ability to take risks made me decide to be an entrepreneur when I had all my hair, all my teeth. And I started off on a journey which has been now over 3 decades. So that was, I think, a very important milestone. And the third thing is the fact that when India opened up, the platform for work became global. It was not just India. And that's when you often realize that this is the pre-internet world, that you realize that people are the same everywhere. Issues are very similar. We talk diversity nowadays, but frankly, issues around the world are similar, whether it's social issues or even organizational issues. And addressing those became an important element in my life. And now I'm really talking about a situation where I can bring all that into play and contribute further to the people I work with.
Fabulous. My next question to you is a question on failure. And I've often said this. I also have a book on failure. I've said that parents in India don't teach children it's okay to fail. We're always told, come first in class, go to the head of the line. And that manifests itself in our behavior patterns. Yet we fail, we learn, we keep moving on. My question to you, Jay, is what have been your learnings from your mistakes?
Unlike you, perhaps, Ashutosh, I've never been head of the queue, in terms of first in class, etc. So I think that is also because the family that I've been lucky to be part of, and the teachers I referred to earlier have always have always focused on being rounded in oneself, and it is never about thrusting yourself ahead. Competition was important, but collaboration was equally important for us. So every time we stumbled and fell, there were others helping us stand up, as well as, of course, people telling us that we must stand up and fight for ourselves also. So in that sense, it became an opportunity to, as the cliche goes, it's not how hard you fall, but how soon you get up. And there I've been lucky, both professionally. I did say I'm a fortunate man. So all mistakes were easily covered up by others who provided safety nets. But those safety nets also became trampolines when the opportunity was
wonderful, wonderful. Safety net becoming trampolines is a fantastic comment. And my last question is for all the young people who listen to our conversation. What would your advice be to a young individual who's starting off on her or his journey in the corporate world?
Be a sponge. Pick up as much as you can. I'm not in favor of very narrow-minded, narrow specializations. I think in life, you need to pick up one or two areas but the world is changing so much, those areas will change. But if you have a broader perspective and be a sponge and pick up a lot of stuff, then I think you are in a better position to, move when changes happen. You can connect with various stuff. Number two is take a lot of risks. Take a lot of risks. And the early part of your career, since you want me to talk about what works for youngsters, take as many risks as possible. If you're a student, that's the best passport in the world. Everyone will talk to you. If you're a youngster in an organization, they will, because you're a young kid, people will offer you ideas, and just be a sponge and pick it up. And then try some of these things. And if you do fail, just dust yourself and, try again, So that works. And I think if there is one more point, it's about building relationships. When you are a sponge and meet a lot of people, and if you have built relationships, they will all become useful to you in life, because everyone likes, we socially like to deal with people.
Correct.
If you are caught up in your own world and you're not connecting with others, I think in the long run, it hurts you. I know the long run is, far from an individual's mind at a very young age. But if the ability to think a little, ahead will enable you to do a better job today.
Amazing, amazing. Jay, on that note, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for talking to me at length about your book, about your experiences in family business. I think our conversation was incredible, keeping in mind your deep knowledge of the family business. Thank you for talking to me about coaching, and thank you for all your words of wisdom for young people. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Ashutosh, for having me, and it's a pleasure to talk to your listeners and meet your viewers. And I'll be happy to connect with any of them if they ever need any inputs.
Thank you.
Thank you once again.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.